Here's video number 57 in this series of Molasses Moon, showing on my Kindle Fire. Just for the heck of it, I might start this playing. Let's see, where's the play button? How's that for a good meese on a beam? In this video number 57 that I just showed, I'll put it on pause. I had a comment there from a nice person that asked said, "Why are you so sad?" And at the end, I guess I might have come across like that in the whole video, and very probably more so at the ending. I answered the comment there, and I thought I might do another video since the response to that actually is kind of involved. It's not just a matter of sadness. I think it was the end of that video, but honestly, it might have been another earlier one. I'm going to double check that to look at some of the endings to see if what I described in that comment response related to that video or another one. To get into this, first let me explain that I'm recording this video now, which would be number 60 in the Molasses Moon series, that is continuing on from the reading of the book with the themes and whatever they sparked mind, connecting the year 1994 in which the book takes place with this year, 2012. Okay, where was I? Here we go again. Losing my train of thought. What I wanted to mention is that I'm doing this recording it's not that late. It would be 4:30 standard time, so the sun would normally still be shining in my kitchen, and the lighting would be high enough that the quality would be better. It's a stormy day though, with heavy thick clouds. The wind was blowing. It's just a mild wind now. So there's not enough light in here to do a high quality motion. So my movements will appear a little bit strange, maybe even kind of ghostly, which brings up the concept that I've been dealing with too, with the ghost in the videos, or the sound of breathing in some of them, and then the sound of footsteps, which I double checked. Those did occur in number 55 at the end. Interestingly, right after I said the date at the end of the video, the year 2012, what sounded to me like footsteps maybe walking away. Since then, the breathing sound has not appeared again, as far as I've noticed, and I see them, or I hear the sound when I view the videos, but I don't hear anything while I'm recording. So we'll see maybe later whether the breathing sound ever comes back. If it doesn't, since I'm in the same setting with the same situations, then that'll be a very interesting occurrence, breathing exclamation point that seemed to be giving some kind of a message, either of approval or confirmation, or just an exclamation point on each of the locations that the breathing sound came in, and also at the footsteps walking. It appeared when I watched it that they were walking fairly close to the table here, but it also sounded like I don't know. I'll just stop there and continue on with what I started here, which was to explain what I meant by the sadness that this person, this kind person, must have noticed. DRG is the first three initials. Thank you first for what appeared to me to be concern. Now, to start explaining this, first I'll get into my astrologer's hat. It's invisible. Looks like a witch's hat, a peaked black one. Made out of, let me see here, might as well use my imagination. A black soft wool type felt. Yeah, that'll do. My chart is kind of unusual in a sense. I have the moon rising in Aquarius. And that moon is very strong in my chart. It's right on the ascendant. And it's the only entity, planet, sun, or moon on the rising side of my chart in the first house, which has to balance all the other planets and the sun in the other hemisphere. They're all actually pretty closely clustered. So that moon in Aquarius rising in my chart is really strong. That makes me pretty much a walking, talking moon. The moon is the emotional part of the chart. So that means I'm a highly emotional and very sensitive person. Not only having the moon that strong in the chart would do that, but I have a lot of water signs in my chart too. One of them is Jupiter at 29 degrees Scorpio, right directly on the midheaven of my chart. Those two alone would give me not only a lot of emotional sensitivity, but they're in situations like the moon is sensitive and emotional. However, it's in the sign of Aquarius, which is detached and logical, very Spock-like. My nephews have always called me, called me Spock, related me to Spock in Star Trek, which is kind of interesting. I took that as a great compliment because I love Spock. But I'm a person that is blending what Spock, I think, tried to do sort of in one of the later Star Trek, is that I have a lot of feeling, but it's used for the Aquarian need to seek truth. So I seek an awareness of truth through feelings. And the feelings are not just pure emotion, they're senses. So I sense things in a psychic way, but it's not in words, it's just in feelings. So bottom line of this is I'm a person that has very powerful emotions. And I've had to learn over a lifetime with these sensitivities to deal with that. And I have. One of the main things is that the truth, okay? You can't lie about emotion. You can't deny it and have it go away. If anything, if you try to deny it for too long, it's going to bounce back with an equal and opposite reaction and make you feel even stronger sometimes. Although, since the sign of Aquarius is somewhat detached, it does allow an ability to detach yourself to a degree from the emotions if they get so overpowering that they're almost impossible to tolerate, whatever word you want to use. So it's an interesting balance. And then the Jupiter in Scorpio. Scorpio is the strongest sign of emotions. It's the water sign that's the most intense fixed water. And with Jupiter there, that expands the emotions of Scorpio and puts them at the top of my chart and related to the career or the life path or the destiny. But Jupiter is a lot like Aquarius. or Uranus, which rules Aquarius. Jupiter likes to achieve perspective and rise above or back off a little bit and try to look at something, including the emotion, from a perspective of comprehending and understanding. So here you have somewhat of an analytical approach in a person, two very powerful emotions. Both analytical and ability to detach, back away, rise above, look at the emotion, and learn from it. So I've always had this capacity inborn, and I've worked fairly hard to develop it because it's just what I've been compelled to do by my DNA, integrity, astrological makeup, whatever you want to call it. So to me, feelings have become quite natural. And this whole paradigm was described in a perfect nutshell by Jack Inglehart in a review of one of my short visceral histories that are published on Kindle, Amazon's electronic reading device, and that I just showed you, the latest edition, Kindle Fire. What he said about that book he was reviewing, which was Dark Diamond Twilight, all of my visceral histories deal with very intense emotional situations. That's what visceral means, from the gut, or felt deeply. He said that I could convey emotion without emotion. Now that probably describes the moon in Aquarius better than any words I could ever put on it. I took that as a very high compliment, and it's been kind of the words themselves, the way they were said, it sort of pulls all this together that I've been saying, and it pulls me together and my talents in writing. That is what I do. And it seems you can say it's without emotion, although when I'm conveying it, believe me, I'm feeling it fairly deeply. Yet that sense of detachment you get from Aquarius allows the emotion to be conveyed in a way that might not be as overwhelming to the person reading. It might be a little bit more tolerable or palatable, especially when the emotions in these stories, they are dealing with very difficult situations that for most people, and in a lot of cases, would be so overwhelming you might not want to read about them. They might be depressing. In this case of these stories, the perspective and the detachment and the humor, though sad and poignant at times, and just the attitude toward what's happening, the strength of character of the people involved, the perspective they maintain, allows the situation to just be inspiring, or probably more than anything, and a how to deal with difficult emotions. And interestingly too, my recent project that I've been working on, and I've mentioned in the last couple of videos, within the book that I recently published, I worked about Ralph Carestia. I'm doing some editing on my visceral history code that I describe briefly and succinctly in all of my visceral histories, and often on the product page. But I've also had in mind and mentioned that I would evolve this code as time and inspiration sparks allowed. And when you're working by the moment like I do, and like I've described in my videos, where the point of power is, here we go again. Maybe I repeat that too. Okay, the visceral history code. It relates very strongly to all of what I've just said, what I'm doing with that code. And at some point, I'll have it set up so that I can read that here, I hope. But what I said in the video number 57, in my comment response to the person asking why I seem so sad. Now also, I might seem sad in a lot of my videos because my attitude and character with that moon in Aquarius, the Jupiter in Scorpio, and all the rest of my chart really. I'm basically a very analytical, in some ways cool appearing type person, even though I've got that moon and all the water signs so strong. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and read this comment, see if I can find it good enough here to read it. Hers with, let's see, DRG, let me see, what's the, DRF is her name she goes by on YouTube. Says, why are you so sad? And there's a question mark and two little parenthesis signs indicating a double frown. My answer, thank you for your question, DRG. At the end of this video, I suddenly felt a deep sadness, similar to what I felt when my German Shepherd howled once, midday, in a way that felt like a great spirit had left the earth. Arlo did that only twice. He had other mild types of howls he did often, but the great sadness and reverence happened only twice. I've had the feeling at the end of this video, I should say that I've had the feeling that showed at the end of this video only a few times. I'd like to record a video telling more about this, if I can someday. Now those feelings, and I'm still not sure if it was actually the end of video 57 or if it was one of the early ones, like I said, because when I watched the ending again of 57, it didn't seem to have quite the intensity of what I recall. The other times I had that feeling. Let's see, what was the strongest one? Okay, the strongest one, Tom and I both shared it, is recorded actually in my visceral histories, in all of them. The repeating, or I think it's most of them anyway, about mining, that are repeating the related events that occurred at energy fields, the gradual, what would you call it, scenes or chapters of shutting down that mine. I have a list of little details of most of the events that went together that tie these visceral histories together, the ones related to mining. And in those, we explain that in that sequence of events, on September 10th, 2001, my husband and I were at the Energy Fuels mine site in the evening, and when we left it was dark. When we got there, of course, it was getting close to twilight, maybe an hour or two before, because it took a while to do what we were assigned to do, or my husband was assigned to do, and I went with him just for moral support. We were turning on the fans for the mine that will allow the airflow to for people to be able to be in the mine and have enough air to breathe. We were turning them back on to get ready to tear the whole mine infrastructure down and haul it off for scrap. So of course that job itself phase that's captured in the last lunchbox title of my visceral histories itself, of course, was a very sad thing to have to do for us, because it not only was the ending or the closing of that mine, but it was the ending of a whole 160-year era. So there would have been a lot of spirits around, I think, at that time, all the miners that worked for all those years in the mining industry in Fremont County. So this is actually a seemingly small recorded history in these 8 visceral histories of mine, these 8 original ones that I have on Kindle. The last one is still to come. But so they're significant. They're not just the shutdown of a simple coal mine, a small coal mine relatively in Colorado. They're the end of a 160-year era in an area that the economy was based on the taproot of mining for that long. So there was more to it there, and yet also that evening Tom and I mentioned that when we left the mine site after turning the fans back on, we felt, both of us, an overwhelming sense of sadness. It felt more like a sense of grieving that went way beyond even the grieving of all the people that were involved in the coal mine industry for that many years, and the support of the economy of the whole area. A type of economy that is much more multifaceted and stronger when you have a taproot from an industry like that, supporting all the other levels. And the story of I Worked probably gives the best example of how many different industries were supported by coal there at that time. But now, if you think about it, what happened the next morning on September 11th of 2001? There's a little bit more explained in this list of related events. On September 21st, when the actual situation was started for the teardown, right before, Tom was in a welding supply store getting ready to order the cutting torches that would be used to cut apart the infrastructure. And they looked into the stock, and this was a national company, a parts company, and found that there were no cutting torches available. And the what you call him, the stocking person, or just the clerk there, and Tom looked at each other with a shared sadness there of people, workers, involved in a teardown phase of something that was of high significance to the people involved. In this case, to our area. Of course, in the case of New York, to the whole world. There's a lot more to all of this, and I'm trying in a way to capture this with the writing of my visceral history code. So even though it's going to be a very short piece, at least to start with, it could very well end up being the book, but whether that happens or not, I usually just let that come and see if it does. But it's taken me a lot of time and focus because it feels important. And it's also tying me back to my life when probably the flame flashed for me to write the type of story I do in visceral history, and in a sense, the type of emotional impact that is in all my books. That is deep emotion, but carries to an uplifting conclusion of hope and more. So I think that's probably enough, especially since I'm not really sure how difficult this video might be to view with the strange motions that come from low lighting. Of course, as anybody can tell watching any of these, this is amateur at the very bottom of amateur. But I just wanted them to be natural and simple like this. In my kitchen with my little netbook that I use for all my writing. With my clock ticking. This is where and how I wanted them to be for now. So I'll sign off again. And I haven't given the date yet, so we're on a Sunday evening, afternoon. It's now 5:53 Mountain Daylight Time. It's March 18th, 2012. Signing off. And thank you, DRG, for your comment, because it's what actually sparked the video that I just did. And there's still a lot more to all of this, but at least that lets you know this is based on the feeling that makes a dog, especially a German Shepherd, howl in that very unique way that chills your spine and speaks to your soul with the deepest sadness you can imagine of loss of some type of grief. When a great spirit leaves the earth, whether the spirit could be an animal or could be a human, could be even another type of spirit that's here among us, but maybe not in a normal type of presence. But the combination of that deep sadness, there's also a sense of hope, a sense of reverence, a sense of wanting to honor that spirit and maybe what it was here for, and also a little bit of happiness at least that now it can rest for a while. It's finished with a job for a day. And a day can be an era or longer and involve history as we know it, maybe this time around, and maybe a history that goes beyond anything that we've ever recorded. Interesting times. I'm proud to be a part of them.